Thank God, 'cause you don't know as a parent, you know, you're so biased. Isn't it? Aha. She goes, she got it. I was like, what the heck? What if I told you that one of rock's finest renowned marriages didn't hold up with a battle? Not with treason, not even with a bye-bye. Richie Sambora has found his marriage was done how the world was. No warning through headlines. No talk, no end. And years afterwards, finally showing what he's truly transpired behind the curtain. Richie didn't talk for years. No interviews, no breakdowns, nothing. Just silence. But now at 66, he finally is speaking up. And what he's saying has folks startled. The title screamed divorce, yet Richie, he says he didn't hear anything. February 2006 started out like a normal day to him. A guy used to do non-stop on rhythm of touring in wildlife street. But rather than music and crowds, he was taken with pure quiet. The sort that feels weighty and incorrect. News had already spread all around. His wife, Heather Locklear, for more than 10 years, had asked divorced. What surprised me was the world had known. And Richie didn't have hours sitting with a BC News radio just after it all fell apart, he said. Something to equal the chaos of his own head. That is not true in the least. There was no big fight, no impassioned speech ahead of it. None. That was logical. Just a cold, startling reality hitting him. Never through headlines. Anticipated. The phone did not ring. His home felt the same. But everything had already altered. Without warning. He has recently returned from a lengthy, grueling tour, pondering about already made Valentine's Day arrangements. Discussed. Just weeks before they had celebrated their anniversary. Smiling and showing everything to the world was heavy. Then their message was plain. Unfortunately, there is no true story tale. Dad, she continues, I want to be an actress. And I took her in a coach. And I was like, okay, let's see what occurs. And they were no strangers to hearsay and gossip, constantly turning them off as if it was nothing. This time denial has no leg to stand on. Opportunity. It was a brutal fact. Heather's rep didn't soften that either. Get straight to the point. 11 years of marriage, Heather Locklear filed for divorce from Richie Sambora. And as she takes her first audition for this Judd Apatow production, this is 40 and she gets it. That one sentence split everything apart. Richie felt he knew. Music didn't stop, fans remained cheering, but in his entire world was coming to pieces. Years later, in one of the rare moments when he lowered his guard, he said to a close buddy something that hit hard. She ate it all up. And he was not talking about money or stuff. It was more than that. He meant the emotional support, the sense of steadiness, the sensation that nobody, no matter how hectic life became, she would always be there. She was his rock. And then she was gone. This wasn't how their story began. Though it began like a movie. Paris promises, LA lifestyle. Everything bright and energetic. It was a fairy tale, brought to reality. Glamorous, thrilling and full of passionate. They met through a mutual acquaintance, Lisa Christie, a makeup artist who linked their worlds. From that moment their lives were joined together. rapidly constructing a love story that appeared fresh out of Hollywood. Only 7 months into their fast, fierce love, Richie took his chance. He dropped down on one knee, eyes focused, asking Heather Locklear, dazzling light, star of Melrose Place and Dynasty, to his wife. And she said yes. And just like that, they jumped in head first. A love that blazed fierce, fitting the spotlight that followed all over them. They didn't begin their marriage with a grand Hollywood spectacle. It really started with a calm ceremony at NJ Courthouse. Miles away, low-key, intimate. Cams and chat. But that serenity didn't last. Days after, they brought stuff to Paris, putting a lot of emphasis on the romance manner. In the City of Lights, tucked among, they exchanged vows, history and beauty. This time wrapped again in pure magic. It felt like a dream, Paris. Every street, every glow of light increased. Right to the point. There, their promises sounded larger, like something right out of a movie. All about forever, or at least that's how it felt back then. When they returned to Los Angeles, they settled into Heather's big house, a bright open place which appeared perfect for dreaming up a future together. That house soon filled with life, music, laughter, and the energy of two people in deep love. Love echoed through every room. Then, in 1997, everything changed in the best way. Their daughter, Ava Elizabeth, was born. She became the heart of their world, a real symbol of what they had built. Richie later said, "There was never a moment I didn't love her. Not one. That love was real, strong, and impossible to fake." But even with all that happiness, cracks started forming under the surface. Hollywood love can look perfect, but it doesn't always hold up under pressure. Their careers pulled them in opposite directions. Richie was constantly on tour, living out of suitcases, dealing with loud crowds and quiet hotel nights. Heather was locked into long hours on set, surrounded by cameras and non-stop expectations. Their home, once peaceful, started to feel crowded in a different way. Not just with people like assistants and stylists, but with distance. They didn't explode into fights, they just slowly stopped connecting. Conversations turned into schedules. Love got replaced with logistics. And that shift, it hit harder than any argument. That magical Paris energy didn't disappear overnight. It faded, bit by bit. Back in Los Angeles, behind those tall walls, things felt colder. The same life they built together started to draw them apart. The closeness that once felt unstoppable began drifting away almost silently, like something they couldn't quite grip onto anymore. Still, one thing never altered: Richie's affection for Heather. Through all the rumors, the headlines, and the pressure from the outside world, he never turned against her. No public blame, no messy call-outs. He stayed still, watching everything break apart as he clutches what he felt in. Years later, when he at last speaking of her, his tone said everything. It wasn't rage, it was real, lasting feeling. "I love Heather still," he told People magazine, keeping it real and easy. "She's my baby's mama, man." That feeling, it never really went away. What do you say in a just a simple line like that? Much more than it looks. There is a fundamental truth in those remarks. A love that didn't die even after the anguish, the separation, and all the noise. Headlines trying to tear them apart. It wasn't just that Heather was in his life. She was his anchor from the beginning. Their friendship was not only about fame or observed together. It went deeper than the limelight. Deeper than the image they saw. Heather had that sharp mind. Quick-witted and fiercely independent. People looked up to. But she had another side that she kept in. Concealed. A more delicate, more sensitive aspect she didn't look much. And in those instances still uncommon. When she dropped her guard, that's when she felt nearest to Richie. That was what had brought him in all the way. He didn't simply love the celebrity. He adored the woman who understood him in. No one else could. Reality began to intrude. And it was not pretty. Their lives were founded on unsteady ground up. Richie was the rock, 100%. Star, always in motion, always playing live amid turmoil. Heather was deep in Hollywood, carrying the weight of staying on top. In a world that never stops. Two mighty lives, yet journeying in diverse ways. Their schedules hardly meshed. The days stretched long and apart. And the evenings were longer. Sometimes all they had was a short phone calls, just to check. Meanwhile the rumors continued to grow, filling the stillness they'd have been talking things over. And smack in the middle of it all was their daughter Ava, a shy, emotional bond between them as things gradually began to break down. Richie wasn't the person tabloids tried to paint him as such. He wasn't careless, he wasn't out there, as the reports claimed she had betrayed her. But in the areas that truly counted, he attempted. Emotionally, he was not constantly there in his mind. Fame, pressure, a responsibility. It went on and on. He loved his family, no doubt. But being there day after day was more difficult than it had to be. His heart was in it, but his time wasn't. His schedule was crowded, and behind him, the scenes he was dealing with private. Challenges he didn't talk about openly. The dreams they used to have. They did not explode. They slipped slowly away. Slowly, these common goals became into separate routes. The spark they had at first began to fade under stress. Weariness, missed chances to reconnect. So when Heather filed for divorce and cited irreconcilable differences, it sounded easy. But it wasn't. But that sentence disguised all they had experienced. In retrospect, Richie was true to form in own way. To love her was never problem. It was the surroundings that created. It fell to pieces. Through all the chaos, one thing never altered, Ava. She was the one steady thing in his world. Born to be famous and watched without end. She gave Richie something true to hold on when everything else was shaky. She didn't come with the racket. She was the truth in the midst. Richie didn't come up with an ideal. A father sample. Looked. His past was convoluted and nothing about the lifestyle of rock prepares you to have a child. But when Ava entered his life, something was different. No, it wasn't tiny, yet it was a full difference. He slowed. He submitted. Same person that used to live in tour buses, rooms, and luxury hotels came to imply anything real to simple times. Recitals, bedtime stories, just dance. Being present. Everything began to count for more than the spotlight ever did. I would kill for her. Richie said it right out. Without a doubt. True. Those weren't just empty words or anything. Said for attention. They were from somewhere real. That was him really getting into being a no filters, no father. Faking. When Heather asked for a full physical custody in the divorce, Richie didn't blow up in a noisy public spat. No courtroom drama, no media circus. From him. But in the background, he stood his ground. He fought for joint legal custody, not to win some battle, but because he needed